Okay, good morning to all. So today we have Amith sir with us, and he's a seasoned professional with the vast experience of around 28 years of experience, sir.
28 years for me, and Vivek is there, who's around 7-8 years senior to me. So yeah, so between us, we have a considerable amount of experience. Yes.
Yeah. So and you have been working with the Amazon, so you have an experience with Amazon. So a lot of people here, they're very keen on taking up a job with Amazon.
Sure.
So I hope you will guide us how to go about it, and
Definitely.
what do we need to get into the e-commerce or e-market space. 28 years is a very good experience, or I would say a vast experience in corporate sector. And we look forward to a very insightful session from your side, sir.
Sure.
Please go ahead, sir. It's all yours now, sir. You can start off, sir.
Take a quick minute to let Vivek introduce himself, and then I'll just quickly cover a couple of pointers about me, which will probably be exciting for you. But Vivek, sir, over to you. Maybe you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amith. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining the session. You already seen my name there, so I won't repeat that. Well, as Amith mentioned, I have been in the corporate sector for a little over 30 years. And I come with a background of software development, learning and organization development, and currently do work for an MNC in a strategy and business management role. So, and learning and development has been a passion right from the time I started my career. And obviously, since I was extensive experience on the software part of it also. Happy to be here to share insights and whatever.
Vivek, you're breaking off a little. Vivek, you're breaking off a little bit. Okay, Rohan, while I'm just quickly covering, if you can give access for the screen share so that Vivek can put the deck up. But just for everyone's understanding till then, like Rohan rightly mentioned, I was with Amazon for the last 10 years. I was a general manager for Amazon, managing some of the biggest fulfillment centers in the country. And not just that, I was also a bar raiser with Amazon, where I have an experience of over 500 plus interviews, starting from L4s to L8s, which is pretty senior levels in Amazon. So I have been engaged with them for a long time. In fact, actually the dot-in customer service, where you all call in today to ask for your refunds, returns, exchanges, etc. That's the team I set up from the core back in 2012. That's exactly what I was hired for from Dell into Amazon. So I just hope that, like Rohan rightly said, we'll give you all the right insights. The good part is that for the last 1.5 years, I've been training a lot of veterans. So my count is already touching close to 40. I'm at 39 right now. So including all the short services and the senior folks, we have trained 39 veterans, out of which many of them have got into big companies, including Amazon, Salesforce, a lot of other companies to talk through. So we'll cover that, and hopefully, like Rohan said, we should be able to bring some value to you, and we can keep connecting after that as well if it is required beyond the session. So Rohan, if you can give the screen share to Vivek, we can get started.
It's already done, sir. Anybody can share. I've already done that, sir. You can share. The document you have.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Vivek, are you able to do that, or you want to try it?
Ginger is just coming back.
Okay.
You see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
I put it on slide mode. So
yeah, thanks, Vivek. Yeah, so Rohan and team and everyone from IIM'B Bangalore, first of all, a warm welcome, like we said, and we are very excited to be with you. And the objective that we are going to try and cover today for you is to try and give you an overview of what success will look like when you start coming out of your courses and start appearing for some of the corporate companies. I know that all of you have aspirations to be a part of MNCs. I also know that a lot of you have been, actively training and working to understand the culture and how you become successful while you're talking to your colleagues, while you're talking to some of your seniors or people who are already there. But in today's session, what we are trying to do, of course, 90 minutes is a pretty crunch time, and we are wanting to leave a lot of time for question answers. So in whatever time we have, what we are trying to achieve are a few things, and I think we'll try and come to the next slide so that I can cover that. Vivek sir, if you can move to the next slide, I'll just give them an overview of what we plan to cover. Yeah, just back. Yeah. So what we plan to do in this is to talk about some of the critical parts of an interview, and I do understand that as a part of your IIM Bangalore, course that you're doing, you will get a lot of good insights in terms of understanding the requirements of a corporate world. I'm sure a lot of leaders would have come and spoken to you in bits and pieces and parts on different skills, on different subjects, which would help you as you make the transition. But what still remains as the most critical piece to do all of that is to cut that first step, and that first step is to clear the interview. And we may feel that, and all of us feel that we have done pretty well, and we understand what it takes to crack the interview. But I also want to let you know that in the last 10 to 15 years, the entire interview process has changed a lot. So a lot of you here probably come from an era when I was also initially starting my career, and we were beginning, and after you got into services. But with the emergence of MNCs and a lot of multinationals coming into India, the whole outlook towards the interview process has changed. And I'll just give you a slight understanding on what it means, and then we'll move forward. But unlike the past, probably 15 years back, when the interviews would largely be a kind of, I would still say a formality, but it would be a pretty quick affair. You meet the one of the guys in operations, then you meet an HR, or maybe you meet a recruitment, and that's pretty much it, and then you get through. Come to 2018 post, and that's the era I would talk about when the MNCs really started flourishing here. Companies like Amazon or Google or Microsoft have a very different lookout. They believe very strongly that when you actually onboard a leader, there is a serious amount of investment that is happening. And this investment actually is critical, because if the individual after joining is not successful and he's not able to come up the learning curve in the due course of time, then it's a pretty serious amount of damage that he or she causes to the company. So what they have moved away from is from a traditional style of interviews to a more complex style of interviews. And what I mean by complex style of interviews is that they want to assess you at 360 degrees. They want to assess you completely end to end on not just one particular area, but many areas. And today, if you look at interviews can largely be broken into two parts. One is your domain expertise. Now, most of the time, people with 15 plus years of experience, there is not too much of concern about the domain area. But the leadership thought process that you bring to the table becomes the other important part of the interview. So what I'm just trying to highlight here before we move forward is that today, the interview process would be a pretty complex process in this big multinationals that you're targeting. And there will be a multiple set of people evaluating you to try and assess and be sure about the skills that you bring to the table and what you are going to be, and if you can be successful with those in the company. So that was the one important aspect I wanted to cover, which probably at times we don't get to know when we are a part of institutes, because we do a lot of theory work, etc. But this is a practical reality that you are going to experience tomorrow when you get out. Right. So now with that clear, we will move to the first piece of interview, which is your resume. And we will quickly just cover that. I'll request Vivek sir to chip in, as and when required. Vivek sir, if you can move to the next slide.
Yeah, sure. So I think the build-up has been done keeping in mind the very, very first step, which Amith mentioned as your profile. And then from there on, we move on to some of the key parts of an interview, how you get started and what you could hit in between and how you could change things. And over on to a very critical piece that plays a vital role in your success, not only in the interviews, but also post-interviews or in the organizations that you work for. So with that, I think we get started with the first piece, which is on your profile or your resume, as we call it.
Yeah. Now, Now, resumes is something where we would probably, kind of always say that there is no right or wrong as such for the resumes. So nobody actually can come up and say that this is the best resume or this is the way that the resume should look like. There are multiple dimensions of a resume. Different companies have different ways to assess the resumes. But one thing that is common now in today's resumes is that come 2023, and if you compare that with probably 15 years back, resumes are no longer read through in detail by any of the recruiters. So I want you to understand this very clearly that all your resumes are going to go through ATS in most of the large companies. And these are application tracking systems. There are very clear algorithms and AI machine learning applications that run on the resume, which pick up the keyword. And if those keywords are missing from the resume with respect to the requirement of the role, your resume is not likely to move forward. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, resume still continues to be the only source of truth for the resumes to get shortlisted, as long as you are not going directly through a source that you know or who's forwarding your resume in the company, right? So some of the things that we would still want you to be very, very clear about the resume and which are still very critical are things that are highlighted here. Always try and start with the current. Now, there are many discussions about should we start from the time that we started our career, or should we start with what we are doing for right now? That is what we should. The reason being that more than likely, the reason why or on the basis of which the company is going to hire you is for the current role that you are managing, which is likely to be the most complex and the most matured role that you are currently in. There is definitely a lot of value for what you have done in the past, but still start with the current. Crisp, short. Majority of the shortlisted resumes are those where the readers does not need to go beyond the first page. I think the summary of the resume needs to be right there. Most of the stuff that the interviewer is wanting or the recruiter is wanting should be actually picked up on the first page of the resume, which means that if you move your achievements, your rest of the stuff which are critical, right down on the second page, not advisable. And so those are the formats that we would suggest. Vivek sir, probably we just went back to the first slides.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Simple language, jargon-free, especially areas that are niche and may not be understood by all. Now, for the veterans, I think this point is very important. I have come across many veteran resumes where, and again, I'm not saying that you do this deliberately, but there are certain niche and jargons which are used in Army and Air Force on a very regular basis, which have become like the part of your life. And we expect others to understand that. They don't. Unless and until a veteran is reading your resume, he will not. So make sure that you are very clear about not using those jargons there and easy to understand. Now, especially for all of you, that I would say is that, and again, I'm specifically talking about the veteran world here. It may not be applicable to all, but especially from the veteran world, make sure that the ability to work with people is rightly highlighted. The most likely areas that the corporate companies would like to shortlist you are areas which involve some amount of people management, if not all. Now, because that is your core strength. Now, whether we like it or we don't like it, that is a reality. Every organization, every corporate company knows that you people all come with unbelievable expertise in people management in some point or the other in your career. So make sure that that is a part of your profile. Like we rightly said, the achievements, so I've already covered that. Your resume, is what you can very well explain and substantiate with examples. Now, what I mean by this is that whatever you are writing in the resume is not just for the sake of it. Always try and substantiate with something, some data, information. Without data or without numbers, resumes are incomplete. Makes the resume exciting. The interviewer or the recruiter is trying to look for scale, is trying to understand the magnitude and the complexity of the work that you have done. And so some amount of data is always advisable to be a part of the resume. Skills and achievements, then designations and positions. Now, this is another area that I want the veteran world to understand. I come from industry before coming into corporate from the hotels, which is very similar to the veteran world. When I say similar in some ways, not fully, but the designations used to matter to us a lot. And the same happens in the veteran world. I mean, today, all of us who are on the call are extremely passionate about the ranks that they carry. And I fully agree. I mean, I'm a big admirer of all of you. And so I fully respect all of you. But come to the corporate, the larger focus is on skills and achievements. So, and less on designation. So to give you a little understanding, if I am talking about me being a colonel, and I'm saying that, okay, I was a colonel in the army, and instead of saying a colonel in the army, I would say that while I was handling this position, I was doing XYZ and contributing to the organization in ABC, then that is more valued. So what I'm just trying to say, or the point that I'm trying to make, is that whether it is the interview or it is the resume, always try and focus on your skills and achievements than designations and ranks. So that is an important aspect that I want you to take back. Specific examples, I think that is, I think that's pretty clear. Aesthetically done. I think Vivek, I'll ask Vivek to just quickly put up a few pointers in here. And last but not the least, don't forget to read the JD. A lot of people make a mistake. Your resumes cannot be cast in stone. They need to be dynamic. And what I mean by dynamic is that if you're applying for a position, make sure that you read the JD and some essence of JD translates in the resume. Let the interviewer feel confident when he looks at the resume that, okay, this person is capable of doing what I am asking for or what we are expecting from him. A lot of us make that mistake. We use the same JD for operations and send it to all possible program management and project management roles. We send it to all possible IC roles which keep coming because we just want to keep applying, which is good. No problem with that. But make sure that you tune the resume when you send it for the particular position. So that is one area that I've seen a lot of misses on. Vivek sir, feel free to add. I think I've covered, but please go ahead.
2 points from me to add on to what you mentioned, Amith. The first is whenever we open resumes, it is the first half page. In fact, the first, even not the half page, the first quarter of the page, which decides whether the recruiter is going through the rest of your resume. Which means essentially the profile summary which you give at the top, that has to be really, really punchy. And we'll give you an example later down in the session on what we mean by that. Typically, what we find is the profile summary given at the top talks about saying, I'm a strong people manager, I've done blah, I've done this, but it does not at all show what value you can bring to the organization and how you can help. So that's a piece that we'll cover as part of writing your personal commercial or the personal branding. But that 1/4 part of the page makes a huge difference. And when we scan the profile, there's a statistics which says, it's pretty interesting, that it takes about 6 seconds for the recruiter to know whether this profile should be read through properly. And that translates into that first quarter of the page. So we'll see more on that as we progress.
Vivek sir, over to you for the next slide.
Yeah. So once the profile is accepted, I think then comes the key part of going through the interview. And in the interview, the most important aspect is the first, in fact, 3 to 4 minutes. And this is where we find, and both Amith and I, and I'm sure you all also have interviewed people, you'd find whether you begin to like a candidate or not. The way the human psychology works is they first tend to like something and then justify why they should use it. And I'll give you an example. I mean, you go to a store like IKEA or go to a store or a mall and you go and find something which looks very nice and attractive. You just pick it up because you find it, you like it. And then you start find reasons of why you should or why you have bought that. Now, the same thing happens with candidates who come for interviews. The first 3 minutes tells the interviewer and posts an impression which drives the interviewer to think, is this person the right person? Do I like him or her or not? If that happens, I think the rest of the interview is just a matter for discussion and a conversation. So starting on the right note is extremely important. And when I say starting on the right note, what I would mean is the way you introduce yourself. Many a time people start with an introduction and say, my name is Vivek, or my name is Amith. It's a very good practice to say, my name is Vivek Vidyarthi. And this may sound very trivial, but it is a fact. I think while the interviewer may know your name, if you're spelling out your name to start your interview, you should start with saying, my name is so-and-so. The complete name should be spelled, because you never know whether the interviewer is able to pronounce and utter your name properly. So it's important that we start with that. And then a thank you note definitely helps in the beginning, saying, I'm really glad to have got an opportunity to interview with you for this role. And I look forward to a very constructive discussion, because I come with a background that perfectly matches or suits the role that you have defined for us. So The first 3 minutes of introduction will define whether the rest of the interview is a question and answer, the interviewer listens to you or not, and whether you're going to make it to the next round. You're seeing certain other points over there. The first question that comes to you would be, tell me about yourself. Question to you. What do you think typically you would cover when someone asks you, tell me about yourself?
Yeah, anybody on the call? Whoever
Anybody
wants
on
to
the
pitch in.
call?
Start off with firstly, you tell about your current positions, and like you mentioned previously also, it would be good to talk about the current profession and your experience in the current job, which is relevant to the JD, sir. You start off with that and then you take it along.
Okay, and what else do you think you would cover as part of that? And what should be the duration of your response to this question?
So maybe 2-3 minutes in which you cover most of the key aspects which are most related to your starting off with your current experience in your current role, and then take it in aloud how you grew to that position and specific to whatever the JD requires out of you.
Okay, we have Anand also who's raised his hand. Anand, please.
Good morning. Sir, just a point. In JD, many times the job descriptions are such that we as veterans may not be able to follow. How do we overcome this particular obstacle? Because let's say that there's a company like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, somebody invests, they are asking for certain positions. We probably don't carry that kind of background. How do you think we should translate ourselves to the JD, sir, so as that to break that threshold?
So, can you give an example of which JD you felt was cryptic and you were not able to figure out and understand? Because the reason I asked that question is, and I'll just give you another 10 seconds, is most of the job descriptions, if you find, would talk about either domain or general abilities as a leader, as a professional. So when it comes to domain, if you're switching domains, one thing which you would definitely do before you switch domains or plan to switch domains is try to gain some expertise there. So by and large, my understanding is you should be able to figure it out. But if you give a specific example, I think we'll be more.
Let's say there was some other day I went through something of Wells Fargo where they say we are looking for people to develop growth, strategic growth, business development. There were certain things like this, sir, which we are probably unable to follow at this stage. As you said, yes, we will have to require a deeper understanding. In a HR role, we know it is to manage people. But we were also told by many people, and including our professors, that HR, what we do, we handle people in the army parlance is different because there is regimentation. Here you can't use the methodology because it doesn't bring innovation. You are dealing with people who are 10, 12 past. You are dealing with a lot of people who at the drop of a hat can say, I'm leaving the job. It doesn't happen. So even for a HR position, we are not still aware of what all the verticals or something in an HR role that we would like to see, whether it be recruitment or anything, and would anybody provide us that training? Because we may have experience, but it will be in a different kind. So when you have asked me, sir, you see, I am not able to answer you coherently, if you could make out.
Okay. So I'll just start off and then Amith can add. So let me tell you, when they talk about strategy or business management or business development, there are typically 3-4 areas that they indicate by that. First is they talk about saying, how do you think your talent plan is going to evolve over the next 2-3 years? That's part of strategy. How do you think you're going to impact processes to make them more efficient over the next 3, 6, 9, 10 months or 2 years? Third is, what do you think should be done to make leadership more effective? Fourth is, how do you think you can work with data and data analytics to support decision making in the organization? Right. Fifth is, if you're talking about specifically HR and recruitment, right? In recruitment, we talk about multiple aspects, starting from how do you improve the quality of resumes that you shortlist? What is your strategy or plan behind it? How do you improve the cycle time of recruitment? How do you improve the quality of candidates that you take in? What change you can bring about to the overall process of recruitment, starting from scanning the profiles to shortlisting candidates, to interviewing, to getting to a state where you have top candidates. And that's where, Amazon comes in and stands out in terms of its entire process. So a lot of organizations tend to evolve on those ways. So typically, this is what strategy or business development would cover. And we could get into more specifics, if we go down deeper into other sessions. Amith, feel free to add.
Yeah, so two things. And again, in the interest of time, we'll move forward and we'll probably take the questions separately if required. But what I would suggest to you, Anand, is that two things I want you to remember. One is never ever send your resume for any position unless and until the JD is clear to you. The biggest mistake that we do is that we end up applying for a role because we believe that the nomenclature of that role probably is something that you can do. So when you read to say that, let's say example, a senior technical program manager, we think that, I think this is what I can easily manage, and we send off the resume. Don't do that. There are many aspects in that JD which probably you do not understand. There are two ways to do it. One is to contact a recruiter. Every organization in every company and every recruiter is now being briefed to answer all the questions to the applicants that are being done. And secondly, I would say take support of your colleagues who have already a part of the company. I do understand that you have your alumni who are in companies who know. It is always good to take their support because they are inside and they will be able to guide you. And one small thing that I would add to what Vivek was saying earlier, when you are talking about your introduction and elevator pitch, yes, I think 2 to 3 minutes is the max time that you should take to introduce yourself. Don't go beyond that. And one small thing that I would like you to keep in mind to all the people who are on the call, I want you to understand that even today, the reality is that there are some interviewers who walk into the interview without reading the resume. Don't be surprised. It's a reality. And how much ever we try and groom those people as a part of being leaders in the company, there are still a percentage of people who walk into the interviews without reading the resume. And so when somebody asks you to introduce himself, if you take it for granted that he must have seen my resume, and that's why probably some of these things would be clear, don't do that. I would advise to you, walk into every interview thinking that your resume is not being read by the interviewer. And then exactly the critical things on your profile that need to be covered, and you don't want the interviewer to miss that. And this is not your fault. It is a fault of the industry.
We missed some wordings. You were saying something. Sorry.
I was saying, what I was saying is that it is not your fault. It is the industry's fault that all the interviewers are still not reached that maturity level that they should read the resume. So walk into these sessions or walk into the interviews thinking that the person on the other side does not know about you. So that's one small inside thing I'm telling you, because you may assume that he has seen your resume and knows everything, but he may not have. Right? So that is the point that I wanted to cover. Should we move ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So just one more point on this slide before we proceed. And you see the big question, why? So the first 3 minutes that you introduce yourself, you need to bring out that statement as to why do you think you're suitable for this role and why you can make a difference to this role. And that again gets driven by obviously the keywords in the JD or the requirement of the job that you're applying for. It's important when you respond, not only in the beginning when you're introducing yourself, but also subsequently. Respond slowly and succinctly, because it gives a very good impression to the interviewer that this is a person who is thinking and answering and responding. And it's coming from my own experience of interviewing people. And even when I've gone through interviews and got feedback, one of the things that has come out is, I see you answering after giving it a thought. So knee-jerk reactions and spontaneously speaking fast doesn't go positively. Important aspect here, Amith. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, you guys. So I'm now going one step beyond. So now let's assume that you are in the interview. You have answered your introduction. Your elevator pitch is done, and this is the second part of the interview. So typically in the corporate world today, when you actually go for any interview, the interviews would be largely broken into 3 parts, and this is what is going to be mostly the standards in the companies that you are going to experience. The first part is where the interviewer will try and make you comfortable, which is what the elevator pitch with the previous slide that we saw, where he will give you questions which will make you comfortable, which will allow you to settle down. And that's when the second part of the interview comes in, which is the part where the interviewer would like to assess you. And this is the part where there will be a set of around 4 or 5 questions that he will put to you to try and gauge the overall capability, to overall gauge the leadership thought process that you bring to the table, and how well you fit into the role, which is going to be justified by some of the examples that you give and some of the information that you reveal to him for the question that is being asked. Now, there is always a concern that people have, or in the interview, if they are not well prepared. And the question is, how much to talk, how to talk, what to put where, and how do you basically close out the answers. Now, this is a very interesting part. The reason being because when you actually start talking in an interview and answering a question, sometimes you can become too passionate. Sometimes you may go overboard. And sometimes because of your own excitement, the entire nature of the response may just waver to a large extent. So this is where we would now advise you to follow the STAR approach. And don't be too surprised about it. If you actually apply in some of the big companies like an Amazon or a Google or Microsoft, the recruiter will actually tell you before you apply for the interview or when you start your interviews to say that follow the STAR. Now, what is a STAR? STAR is nothing but a way of putting the answer together. It is basically making sure that you first of all articulate the problem statement. It then makes sure that you talk about the task and the actions that go into it, and then eventually follow it up with a result. Now, what does a STAR do? The STAR will help you to organize your experiences more effectively. As you put the problem statement, then you talk about the task, then you talk about the actions. It will help you to keep a good guardrails around the time factor of the question that is being asked. And the interviewer would be able to relate to you very well, very closely, because he's then following the approach that you are making. He may basically try and ask some probing questions, but as long as you follow the STAR, it will help you to make sure that you give a rounded off answer and not waver everywhere. The STAR will also allow you to develop and conceive a plan during the interview. And it will allow you to answer the probing questions, like I rightly said, well in advance. So what a STAR does is, or what any answer does is, so here's what my clue to you is, that the best interviews are where the interviewer doesn't need to ask you probing questions. So for example, I've asked a question, you give me an answer, then I ask you another 3 questions, then you give me 3 answers. The best answer is where you are able to proactively know what the next question is likely to be, and you cover a brief to the interviewer. That is the best answer. Now, this is not going to happen overnight. This will need a lot of practice. This will need a lot of your ability to articulate effectively. This will need a lot of your ability to experience some of these interviews, either in a mock way or through your YouTubes or through your colleagues or through your seniors who are there in the industry. Practice with them. And that is when you will reach here. So I'll pause here. Vivek sir, if you want to add or any other thing that I missed out.
No, I think covered all points, Amith. And just one point to reiterate, because that's most important. Your response should come with a lot of thought. So pause, take your time when you respond. That's very critical. And these are, again, basic things, but a lot of people miss out on doing this. And that's where they falter and fumble when they respond.
Yeah. So to actually make you understand the next part of our presentation, I want you to watch a small video. And once we watch that video, we will then probably talk about it. There is an important message that is there in the video and what we want to cover. So let's look at the video once.
Let me know if you're able to hear the sound or not. I've already shared sound.
And what kind of drug dealer asks a cop what?
You able to hear the sound?
Yes, we are able to hear the sound.
Yeah.
Great.
And what kind of drug dealer asks a cop what time it is when he's got a briefcase full of pot, right?
We should hire you. Jesus, I'd give you the 25 grand as a signing bonus.
I'll take it.
Unfortunately, we only hire from Harvard. And you not only did not go to Harvard Law School, you haven't even gone to any law school.
What if I told you that I consume knowledge like no one you've ever met and I've actually passed the bar?
I'd say you're full of crap.
That's a Barbary legal handbook right there, right? Open it up. Read me something. Anything.
Civil liability associated with agency is based on several factors,
Including the deviation of the agent from his path, the reasonable inference of agency on behalf of the plaintiff, and the nature of the damages themselves.
How did you know that?
I learned it when I studied for the bar.
Okay, hotshot. Fire up this laptop. I'm going to show you what a Harvard attorney can do. Pick a topic.
Stock option backdating.
Although backdating options is legal, violations arise related to disclosures under IRC Section 409A.
You forgot about Sarbanes-Oxley.
The statute of limitations renders Sarbanes-Oxley moot post-2007.
Well, not if you can find actions to cover up the violation as established in the Sixth Circuit, May 2008.
It's impressive, but you're sitting at a computer.
Playing hearts. Sorry, if you want to beat me, you're gonna have to do it as something else.
How can you know all that?
Okay, so obviously no points to guess whether who was Harvey Specter, or no points to guess which series was this. I think everybody on the call knows, and I think most of us are big fans of this. But and I want people to obviously contribute. I mean, we don't want to make this a one-way session. So what did you actually get to feel after looking at this particular video clip? What were some of the things that come to your mind as you see this, apart from being Sweets and one of the best suits in best series? Open to all. Rohan, maybe you can ask people to.
I'll only start. I think what it shows is that the guy is really well prepared. You know, he knows
Very good.
he knows his game when he's sitting there. He knows that what he's talking, and so that is what actually foxed the other guy.
Good stuff.
Because the knowledge that he showed. So if we correlate this to our situation, people might think that these guys don't have corporate knowledge, but if you can showcase the knowledge to them, then of course they will be more than happy to hire you.
Yeah, maybe the key takeaway from your message just now, Rohan, is I may say that the guy has ability to get into the details and understands the domain, like the back of his hand, right? So that's the message that I can take away. Anybody else on the call who would like to contribute what we are trying to highlight here?
And I think he was very okay.
Go ahead, Ashwin.
अच्छा
नहीं, please sir, आप बोलिए.
Sir, I think he knows that next questions, or while answering the previous question, he is ready for the next whatever situation oblique questions will be raised, and he is ready for the answers for that.
Yes,
Although
and possibly
Rohan
why?
has said ki,
Yes, and possibly why? Because his domain, his expertise on that data
yes, sir.
is very heavy, and he
Yes,
knows
sir.
his subject very, very well.
Yes, sir.
Asha, let's come to you.
I think when you look at him, he's so calm and composed, and he's so cool about it because he's already prepared. So with that, I think he just
So
the battle there.
yeah, so you all have covered it. At the end of the day, knowing your subject well is important. And so how much ever we, try and showcase what we have done, or how much ever we try and showcase what we are capable of, unless and until you have gone deeper into your subject, interviewer is not going to get pleased. Now look at the guy on the other side. Initially, he was probably just talking to him. But as he started realizing the expertise on the subject he had, you saw his look change. You saw that he was starting to get impressed. Why he was getting impressed? Because he was showcasing data. He was clearly highlighting his ability to interpret data in a way that nobody could. And he said, how do you know all of that? Yeah, that's because for your subject. So that brings us to the point in the interview that somewhat unless and until you prepare well for the role in detail, with data, with information, if you are appearing for a role of a program manager, and if you do not have examples which showcase when you handled the program and how deeper you went, or what are the things you did, what were the inferences you gathered, and you are not able to showcase your ability to operate at all levels, then the interviewer is going to be impressed to a certain extent. But if you want to hit the ball out of the park, then this is what you need to get, or this is what you need to do. So that was the message that we wanted to send. I think most of us have got it. So I will not harp on the topic anymore, but know your subject well. If you want to apply for a role, or even if you want to apply for a role, and if you have not read the JD properly, like somebody asked that question before, many a times you make that mistake and then you are suddenly caught off guard. So getting into the details of the JD, getting into the details of the examples, super critical. Vivek sir, feel free if I left something.
Charit, you had something to say? Charitra raises his hand.
Nikhil sir, please go ahead with your answer question.
Sir, I think with all that background knowledge and having studied about what he is going to get into, slowly he's building the curiosity with his interviewer also.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And that's one of the techniques.
The interviewer did not have the basic qualifications. He had not got to Harvard. Their basic qualifications were Harvard graduate. But that really didn't matter when he was such a big subject matter expert and he had that confidence to show he can deliver as much.
True.
So I think just one statement to cap this all, and that's slightly in response to what Rohan mentioned on subject matter knowledge and most of the veterans possibly not being there. Now, all these companies who recruit veterans, they have very, very clear understanding that y'all are coming from a background from Army, Air Force, Navy, and your domain has been absolutely different. And they do not expect you to be experts in the role they are recruiting you for. What they seek and what we seek is this person confident, a go-getter, disciplined, good in communication, can handle and command people, and given the role and the requirements, pick it up very fast. So you need to push it out of your minds that since we do not know the domain or the corporate industry is different, we will not succeed. So that's the first starting step for you all. So yes, you need to do a little bit of studying about what the role is, but you shouldn't be bogged down by thinking, well, I do not know risk and controls and I'm applying for a risk and controls role. Not required at all. In fact, you would know risk and controls much better than any of us in the corporate world would, given that you're coming from a defense background. Just to give an example.
One last thing that I would say here before we move to the next slide is that don't get stuck in your mind, being a veteran, that my roles in corporates would be limited to only SLP or only the admin or only the facility. No, that is not true. When I used to interview veterans in Amazon, and I've hired and worked with numerous veterans over the last 10 years. Trust me on this, we would actually assess what they were doing in their previous role. And if we see that they are capable of delivering the task as per their previous roles, I would be more than happy to even allow him to come and handle a kind of a customer service kind of a business. I have no qualms about the fact that if his ability to work with people is strong, if he's able to showcase to me examples where he's worked with multiple stakeholders, he just needs to apply that to a new domain and he'll be successful. So that is the other thing that I want you to get out of your mind, because if you get that particular thing in your mind to say that these are the only roles that I'm going to apply for, then that just reduces your horizon in a big way. So I want you all to understand that. I hope probably that makes some sense.
Amith sir, if you don't, I would like to add on to that one.
Please go ahead.
When we the example you gave about Amazon and all, in Army, Air Force, and Navy, people other than their core jobs, people handle a lot of things which people outside they don't know. I'll give you a very small example that some of the officers might have handled a shopping center. Army, they have their own shopping centers. Okay, for shopping center, what you will do? You will get vendors who will do the operations of shopping centers. You will also check into accounting of the shopping center, and then the sales figure, how the sales is going, because it has to be a profitable thing also. All these things. So this is just an example. So when we have done all this and all, how do we showcase all this? Going to a company like Amazon, because I can't in an interview, if I go and say I handle shopping center, so they might feel that dukaan bhi chalaya kya isne?
No. So what I would say, Rohan, is that when you go for an interview, don't think about handling a shopping center. Think about the kind of skills and the abilities you have picked up while handling a shopping center. So for example, now when you shopping center, what are some of the likely skills you are going to pick up? I'll just outline them and then tell me if it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Some of the skills that I will pick up is interaction. If I'm handling a shopping center, then I'm going to be going to talking to people, right? I'm going to be talking to my potential internal customers, even if they are same people from the services, they are your internal customers. So I pick up customer service interpersonal skills. I pick up stakeholder management. If I'm working in a shopping center, I need to work with some of the stakeholders, like probably the support systems, like let's say the one who is providing electricity to it, or somebody who is basically taking care of licensing for the shopping center, etc., and many such different stakeholders that are there. So that brings about my ability to work with the stakeholders. If I'm running a shopping center, I'm responsible for the P&L. So I start understanding some of the financial aspects of running a business, right?
Yeah. Your voice is going in between.
Okay. So I hope I'm clear now. So, so what I'm trying to highlight to all of you is, don't too much worry about the domain that you have managed. Forget about shopping center. There are people who have managed hospitals in the army. I work with a lot of जहाँ पे एक फौजी को they have given him the responsibility of CHS, जिसको उसको कोई भी knowledge नहीं है. अब वो तो फौजी है, but he's handling the hospital. Now in the hospital also, there are so many skills to pick up. The admin abilities, the ability to liaise with the government, the ability to liaise with different functions. So what I'm trying to say is that every time you try and think about the work that you have done, focus on the skills and not the main thing that you have done. That is the way to approach it.
Yeah. So one more thing, talking about the JDs and all, when we see the JD and when we get a call, sometimes we get a call from XYZ companies, and on the other side of the call, there is, I think, a person with 1.5, 2 years of experience in corporate, and he or she is explaining you, JD, sir, this, have you done this? I'd say, yeah, I have done this. Sir, but the JD, it demands this also. So how, sometimes you feel very helpless. You say, how do I explain to this person? Because the experience on the other side is so less that it's very difficult to, make them understand things.
Well, we can't say that you can avoid these situations, right? You can't avoid these situations. But I'll tell you one thing, if the recruiter has got in touch with you, which means that your profile is shortlisted. Recruiter will only call you once the profile gets shortlisted. So if you really start, getting into such jammed situations where you are just not able to explain to the person what you have done or what you are capable of doing, or like you said, if the person is like 1 year old and you find the person immature, there is no harm in telling the recruiter on the call to say that, hey, I'm just going to put down a 2-pager or a 1-pager to you about some of the things I've done. I'll really appreciate if you can pass it on to the hiring manager, and then we can have the next set of call. Absolutely no problem. See, what happens is these are some things that we don't know that we should be doing or we can do.
Yeah.
अगर recruiter ने call कर दिया है, तो इस वक्त उससे important इंसान कोई भी नहीं हमारे लिए दुनिया में. So I want you all to understand this. See, मैं आपको एक चीज बोल देता हूँ, उसके बाद सब clear हो जाएगा. उसके बाद आपको सवाल पूछने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. Let me make it very clear to you that as much as you are wanting to get hired, the companies are equally desperate to hire you. Please understand that the number of positions or the senior levels at which they hire you 15 years plus, एक position के लिए they have to scan 20 to 50 people. So trust me, when I was interviewing in Amazon and when I used to have an interviewer sitting in front of me, maybe I was more interview than what he was. And I'm telling you the internal thing. So when you start applying, when such things happen, don't be under any kind of stress. The more you interact, the more you pass on your messages, the more likelihood that you are going to get a chance. So don't hesitate in doing that. I'm telling you openly. Next time you tell the recruiter, I'm going to just send you a 1-pager. I would really appreciate if you can pass it on to the hiring manager because I want him to know what all I've done. No problem at all. They would appreciate that actually.
Asha, you had a question.
I have a question here. I want to know what are the average levels, number of interviews that you generally have in a MNC? Okay. How many? 2, 3, 4?
Okay, I'll tell you. So if you look at Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, so the program that we run, or Career Igniter as a part of, we also run a program, we'll talk about that later. We have benchmarked ourselves on these 3 companies, which is Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, because these are still the 3 toughest companies to crack the interviews at, right? Now, on a number of interviews for a middle management or a senior management, mid to senior, which all of you become a part of, 14 years to 20 years plus, you will go through at least a series of at least 5 interviews during the process of the final hiring. So at least 5 individual one-on-one interviews. There are no panel interviews that happen anymore. Panel interviews may happen only if there is a recruitment drive, which some of the companies conduct, but वो भी आजकल बहुत कम हो गया है, where there is a drive where you just come and then you go through all the series of interviews and you get hired at the end of the day. That happens very less now. More than 90% plus of the cases, you will at least meet 5 people before your actual interview gets over, and in some cases 6.
And one more question as a continuation of this. So how many months do we take it that, it's going to take how many months for the entire process? 3, 4, 5?
Well, that you can't say. See, there are things that happen. Companies start recruiting to create bench strengths. That time, the amount of time can take more. Companies hire desperately for certain open roles where they need somebody immediately, where the interview process can speed up like no one's business. And in some cases, it may happen on it. So it is very difficult to predict and say that, okay, Amazon mein 2 mahine mein hire ho jayega, ya Google mein. That you can't say. It all depends on the role and the nature of the situation that we are in that time.
Okay, thank you.
Typically 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, typically 6 to 8 weeks. Could be a little more depending on the criticality of the role and the number of candidates that are being interviewed.
Amith sir, just one query I want to, we've been trying to get recruiters for our campus recruitment, and our course is getting over on 23rd of Feb. So we have spoken to a lot of people, that when should we start, aggressively approaching recruiters so that the right time comes and we can join the company, the first day of the company, I would say. So in your, if I may ask you that, what is the right time to, go all out about it? Say if we take the process of interview and then we take the notice period time, how much you think the company will take to, onboard you officially?
Sir, मेरा आपको suggestion ये रहेगा. I will advise all of you, since all of you are looking at moving out and joining the corporate world or getting into any kind of work, I would suggest that start anytime now. I'll tell you why I'm saying that. At the maximum, what is going to happen is you may get a call, and that's what you're worried about. If I get a call and if the interview happens and if I get through and if they ask me to join in a month's time, how will I join? That is the concern that you have in your mind, right? I mean, that can be one of the concerns. What I'm saying is you can start anytime. When you have the first call with the recruiter, at that point in time, make it clear as to what your joining timelines are. When are you likely going to get free? If there is a possibility for you to join a month earlier than your scheduled time, make them aware of that. The recruiters will funnel that information back and then only take this forward. So there is no right time. You can start anytime. As long as you are clear about your joining dates, as long as you're clear about when you can move in and what time you have, etc., there is no problem. So there is no right time as such.
Yeah, Minu, your question. You're on mute.
Yeah, Minu,
Minu, you're on mute.
Minu, you're on mute now.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Basically, sir, it is in furtherance to what Asha asked. What is the status and what is the procedure for Indian multinational companies like Tata? What is the procedure? How many levels of interviews are there in Tata's, in Mahindra and Mahindra, Godrej, Reliance? So it is the similar. It is in the similar.
Yes.
Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, with the MNCs, Minu, a lot of Indian companies have started portraying or mirroring, because these are the right processes. These are the processes which evaluate the candidate end to end. So most of the companies, now I work very closely with Mahindra's because we do pass on resumes to them. Mahindra has the same process. So for a senior manager, they go through levels of at least 3 to 4 minimum interviews before they get the last HR round. So that is what will happen in most of the companies. Some of the very smaller companies and startups may not be a part of this plan. So some of the startups and all, you may have just 1 or 2 rounds and get through. But otherwise, established companies will go through series of interviews.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Just one disclaimer. I know we're taking a lot of questions, so I know. So I hope just that we may probably not leave too much of time for question answer. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, because we still have got content to cover. Go ahead, Asha.
All right, one basic question. So we are generally absorbed at general manager, AVP or VP level, because when I speak to so many people, somebody's been absorbed as AVP, somebody even as VP or GM and senior GM. So which is a right position for maybe 10 to 14 or 20 plus 25,
Asha,
in case you have got the,
Asha, you didn't read my slides in that case. I don't think you looked at my presentation, which some of the slides I took you through. I spoke earlier I spoke in the previous slides. Vivek sir, if you can just take it back a little bit and talk about that slide, show the slide where I said, do not think about designations and levels. I know this is a veteran mindset, and I know that this is a challenge. Here's what I would suggest to you. Don't look at whether it's a VP or AVP or a director, etc. Every company has its own nomenclature. Look at the complexity of the role. Look at the scope of the role. Look at the number of people you are managing, number of geographies you are handling, or the length and breadth of what you are responsible for. It doesn't matter whether the role is a AVP and allows you to work through multiple geographies, a high-level complex situation, as against a director who's handling 15
What
people.
time it is when he's got a briefcase full of pot.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, as against a director who's handling a set of 10 people and just handling the India domain. So what I'm just trying to drive home a message to you, Asha, is a lot of veterans get stuck upon not applying for roles because they feel that this is going to be, kind of a lowered down role. Don't do that. This is my sincere advice to you. A senior technical program manager looks like a very ordinary level. Nothing fancy, right? Senior technical program manager. It is as good as a role that you actually can join with 20 years of experience. So here's my suggestion. Don't think too much about it right now. We can guide you. I mean, we'll be more than happy to guide you in case you have those questions at a later stage. Talk to somebody who's in the industry. Talk to somebody who has been there. He or she will be able to give you more insights on that. But that's my sincere suggestion. Don't stop applying thinking कि ये VP नहीं है तो मैं apply नहीं करूँगी. ऐसा मत करो.
I think that's, I would just second that, given my experience as well, that the titles and designations vary from company. The larger the company, the title may be relatively a smaller role. A smaller company, the title may have a larger role. So it's complexity of the role and what you feel you can really do very well that should drive your decision.
Asha, मैं जब Dell में था, when I was in Dell. So before I moved to Amazon, I used to work with Dell computers. My designation in Dell was Director Finance and Operations. Okay. When I moved to Amazon, I joined as a Senior Operations Manager. My own family was about to disown me, thinking that I've lost everything in my life. Because they also probably come with a mindset, oh, they don't understand the corporate. My father told me that, looks like you're finished, right? But this is what I'm trying to tell you. The role that I was handling in Dell as a Director of Finance Operations was nowhere even close to what I was doing in Amazon. So imagine I told you I joined to open the customer service. So the .in business that I was setting up over a period of 1.5 years became 6 times of what the profile I was handling in Dell. So that's just a small suggestion that I have.
Yeah, I understand that, and it's so much well taken. But the only thing is, like, should we even think about the reporting channel? Like, I'm reporting to the CEO or I'm reporting to the...
Not at all. Nothing.
Okay.
I will only tell you to look at the scope and the magnitude of the role. That is what matters.
Right.
It does. Nothing else matters. Okay, let's move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, Amith.
Yeah, go on, sir. Please go on.
So I think one of the things which we encounter when we interview candidates is people are very hesitant to talk about their failures or their losses. Now, it's but natural that everything could not have been hunky-dory in one's career. You would have ups and downs, somewhere big wins, somewhere losses. And it's absolutely okay to acknowledge your losses. Caveat is, when you talk about your losses or failures, you need to add on what you learned from it and how you've been working to build upon and capitalize from that and improve on it. Typical question which comes is, can you tell us about your strengths and weaknesses? People list out 10 strengths, but they find it extremely difficult to list out even one weakness. Now that is a negative aspect, because listing out or spelling out a weakness doesn't necessarily mean that you are bad. Acknowledging the weakness actually gives an impression that you are a person who's constantly reviewing yourself in terms of what you're good at and where you need to improve. And that is what a good company would look forward to.
Vivek sir, before you finish, I'll just wanted to highlight why I have put this slide here.
Yeah.
And this is one of the biggest challenges for the veteran world. And I'm telling this openly. Don't please mind it, because I'm talking with experience. Even right now, I'm training around 40 plus veterans. So I'm telling you with my own confidence, being vocally self-critical is an area that veterans struggle in. The reason being that the the environment and the grooming under which you are brought up, the approach is that you cannot fail, or you've got to deliver, but you have to complete the task that is given to you. Failures are being looked at as a black marks on the regiment, on the individuals, that he's like he's a lost case, etc., etc. Vocally self-critical is an area that veterans have to work on, and that is why we put this slide in. I'm not saying it is impossible that they are not able to turn it around. All the people I work with have been able to turn it around. But this is one area, like what Vivek said, unless and until we are openly, vocally critical about our failures, we will never know what success looks like. Sorry, Vivek, sir, I just wanted to highlight that.
No, I think that's absolute relevant context over there, because the audience is largely focused on, is largely comprising of veterans over here. So, and when strengths and weaknesses are spoken about, standard answers that we get is, I'm very emotional, and I lose my temper, right? Or communication. Yes, those are some of the personality traits which could be strengths and weaknesses. But what the interviewer is looking for is strengths and weaknesses linked to performance and linked to delivering value to the company. So while you may say that, well, one of my weaknesses, just to give an example, one of my weaknesses is I get stuck onto a project for too long and get into too many details, wherein I lose the big picture. And that's what I've been trying to work on. So we need to evaluate our strengths and weaknesses on lines of our professional work and work environments, more than harping upon, I'm bad in communication, or I'm bad in managing my time, etc. Those are points, yes, but it should be more linked to business and role. Or a strength could be, well, one of my strengths is I have a very good eye for detail. And as you all know, that the devil lies in the detail. And this has helped me ensure that all the projects that I've managed have been spot on in terms of budgeting and spend. So you should just go beyond that as to why this has helped you. Likewise for your weaknesses as well. And coming to wins and losses, there's of course a detailed module which, in case you'd like to go through it once we tell you about it, there'll be more on it. But it is important that when you spell out your losses, you also mention what you've done post the loss or post the negative patch to work upon, improve, and turn it around. So the STAR approach becomes handy here as well, when you're talking about wins and we're talking about losses. So what is the situation? Yeah. Go ahead.
No, and I think some of you who have looked at Amazon, and I'm sure most of you have, because Rohan told me that a lot of people are fascinated by Amazon. So I'm sure that you have gone to the Amazon website and looked at the leadership principles, right? I suppose so. Have you seen a particular skill or principle which says being vocally self-critical? How many of you have read that? Or maybe I can just get a yes or yeah. Okay, Charit says yes. Yeah. So there is a specific principle which says being vocally self-critical, which actually highlights and wants you to come out with examples where you could not succeed or where you could not deliver. But the essence of the question is not to showcase your failure, or the essence of the question is not to put you down. The essence of the question is to say what you learned from that failure. How would you make sure that that doesn't happen again? That is the essence of the question. So don't get too worried about in an interview to say, if I showcase my failure, how will this person look at me? No. Senior leaders, matured leaders, appreciate people or appreciate leaders who are openly willing to talk about their failures and are then willing to put corrective actions against them. So this is a small word of advice I'm giving you, inside story, which probably will help you. Sorry, Vivek, go on.
No, good. I think. So any thoughts, questions on this? I think I'll be good with this.
Sir, if I may just interrupt, sir. Sir, can you, this handling of, how do you handle the weaknesses, sir? Like you said, I for details, sir. If I am...
Who's speaking?
Charit,
if you can just say the name.
Charit,
okay.
Sorry, sir. Charit, sir. Sir, I just wanted to check, sir. See, like you said, I for details, sir. If I do too much of that, it is like micromanaging, maybe interpreted as. Is micromanaging a weakness? If I say I micromanage things, and how do I... That's a negative, no, sir. I don't know if I really have to tell somebody I micromanage.
Micromanaging is an opportunity which you can improve on. Micromanaging is an opportunity where you start taking away an element of empowerment from people, then that is definitely worrying. There needs to be a fine line between getting into the details and knowing what is happening with the last person on the ground and interfering that beyond the point. So there's a fine line between that. So knowing your job absolutely down to the T is critical. I would say it's a very good strength. But then keeping a fine line in stepping over and starting to reduce empowerment and getting into people's work, that is.
No, sir. My question was, how do you,
Guys.
I don't know whether I want to tell my weaknesses, sir. Maybe another example. I am very passionate about late hours in the night.
No, that won't be a weakness.
That is not a weakness. That is not an opportunity. That is a strength that you are camouflaging and trying to put as an opportunity. I don't consider that as an opportunity. You being passionate and wanting to work in the nights is not a opportunity at all. You working in the nights and asking or expecting other people to work with you in the night and pushing them to do it, that is an opportunity for you.
So micromanagement, Charit, I think if it's a weakness and you want to call it out, you can possibly frame it in a way which says that, well, one of the things which I realized in my previous role is people thought I used to micromanage. And when I introspected, I found, yes, maybe I was getting a little too much into what people are trying to do at every step. I since then backed away and I found an advantage because that gave people the freedom to think a little more on their own and come up with their thoughts. So gradually I'm working towards overcoming that weakness. It has its advantages, but I feel it's better not to micromanage, and that's how I'm working to improving it. So absolutely okay to, call it out, but frame it the right way.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on from here. Right. Sometimes in an interview, you would find that you're probably not getting the right signals, which means the interviews, kind of starts maybe scribbling on a notepad while responding, goes on asking questions after questions without any relevance or continuity, or pauses or is looking at the cell phone, takes a call. So you may feel that the interview is not going the right way. What do you do there? If you have encountered such a scenario, any examples? If you haven't, what do you think you can do there? It could happen. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, though not attended an interview, but just my point that if the interviewer is not at all willing to listen to me, I would, to a certain extent, try to put things that add value. But beyond that, I could not force him to listen to me. I would say, thank you very much and good day.
Okay. So, well, okay, good. I think that's from your side. But let me tell you, if an interviewer doesn't wish to listen to you, by and large, they would very quickly and gently taper the interview down to a closure and say thank you. Right? It would be the other way around. It would be a gentle taper down in most cases. Right? It would be short. It would be cut short because they probably didn't find value in what you're saying and what you're responding to. So one is, yes, maybe your responses are not being acknowledged and you're not able to engage the interviewer. The second could be, you could be feeling anxious, you could be feeling nervous, and that could make you feel that, well, the interview will go wrong. So you can definitely turn it around. You can give it a shot to turn it around. And sometimes you may feel that the interviewer is asking you questions which is probably putting you in a spot. Now, two parts to it. One, possible. The interview is putting you on a spot. Second, the interview is perhaps trying to test how you react to a situation under grit. Right? So in such scenarios, what you could do is, first of all, do not let the confidence in your voice drop. So when you find the interviewer fiddling with the pen and scratching the notepads or talking, you continue with the same confidence in your voice. Don't let that drop, because once you start dropping your confidence, whatever chances you have of turning it around, that goes out completely. Right. Maybe you should pause and take a glass of water if you are anxious. Absolutely okay to do that. Right. Maybe you should break convo and make some light conversation over there with the interviewer, saying that, okay, so just on a separate note, can I ask you a question? So you need to go prepared with questions which you can ask the interviewer for light conversation. Diverting it from the mainline interview that is happening. For a few. You could even walk out of the interview room and come back. It's absolutely acceptable. Because as you see and as you read there, most interviewers, and we all have been interviewers, we are empathetic. We are not there to trouble people and the candidates. There would be 1 in 100 who may be on a spree to bully candidates, but 99 interviewers would always be there and they would be empathetic. And a lot has changed today in the way people interview. It's not those grilling kind of interviews that happen. It's very, very congenial environment in which interviews are conducted. Sometimes you would find a question is not understood. So you can always ask for rephrasing it. Sometimes your answer may not be understood. So you can always pause and say, okay, I think I'm not being able to convey my response. Let me step back, rephrase, and re-answer that question for you. So these are some of the things, and we'll just show you a video, which in a bit, which will give you an example.
Before you go to the video, before you go to the video, guys, I want you to understand $1 million thing here. And that is something that I'm telling you with my experience. Many a times, and most of the times, one of the reasons why your answers falter is because you have not understood the question well. But you are in such a dilemma and under such extreme stress that if he has asked me something, I got to respond to it. Don't ever do that. My sincere request to you is that in an interview, if you have not understood the question, please ask him to rephrase or be a little bit more specific or give a little bit more information about the question. Trust me on this, 99 out of 100 times, if you haven't understood the question and if he gives you more information, you will be able to do more justice to it. But do not answer the questions if you have not understood it. It is rather okay to say that, can I take this question a little later at the end because I'm still thinking through the answer, or ask for a clarification on the question. See, remember, like I said before, I think what Vivek has covered most of the stuff here. But remember one thing, interviewers, like I said before, are equally interested to hire you as much as you are wanting to get hired. So they are also trying to do everything to make you comfortable. And so make sure that you look at some of these tips that we have given you. These are just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, as we get into the detailed program, or there is so much more that we know is there to understand about the interview, especially in the corporate world. But don't panic if things are not going well, because there is always an opportunity to turn it around. And like what Vivek is saying, the next video that you're going to see will give you a good understanding of that. But repeating again, not answering questions till you understood the question.
Okay.
Uh, 12. It was a small town.
I'll say.
But I was also first in my radar class in the Navy, and that was a class of 20. Can I say something? I'm the type of person, if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm gonna tell you that I don't know. But I bet you what, I know how to find the answer, and I will find the answer. Is that fair enough?
Chris, what would you say if a guy walked in for an interview without a shirt on? And I hired him. What would you say?
He must have had on some really nice pants.
Yeah, so again, for guessing, that was Will Smith, that was In Pursuit of Happiness. We all know what it was, but there is a message there that we wanted to kind of send out. And I suppose most of you would have got that message. Anybody would like a quick, addition to that message that we were trying to drive here? Anyone?
He looked at the positive side.
Very good. The interview was not heading anywhere. He had just painted his out and he did not have time. So he was not in the best of the appearances. He knew that he had started on a bad note. He knew that it was probably just ending in a way that he didn't want. But he made that one striking note. He made a few statements in that interview, which left a very lasting impression on the interviewer. Now, the point that we are trying to drive here is that interviewers also know that you may not be able to answer all the questions. Obviously, if you there are understand that if I'm asking 10 questions, he may not be able to answer all the 10, or she may not be able to answer all the 10 questions. But those one or two questions that you answer with some striking ability, that can actually turn around the whole interview. So what we are just trying to emphasize here is that during the course of the interview, there will be some ups and downs. There will be situations where all the questions will not go the way that you expect them to. But try and answer the questions that you understand well in the best of your abilities, because that can leave such a striking impression on the interviewer or the people who are talking to you that they may probably go back and say that, yeah, I think maybe the guy probably or this lady has it. So that is the message that we were trying to drive, because it will happen. And trust me, we all go through interviews where if the first 5 minutes don't go well, we all panic. And even if we have answers for the rest of the questions, we falter. So that is the reason we wanted to show this to you, that you can turn around the interview at any point in time. Even the last statement that you make just before you close the interview can be the most striking one.
Yes, Charit.
Okay.
Sir, Charit, sir, sir, in the same context, sir, in an interview, sir, should you come across as being serious, you mean business, that kind, like he cracked a joke, sir? Will it sound cocky?
You have to, Charit, you got to assess the situation in the interview. You don't start cracking jokes from the time one that you get into the interview. No, that's not how it happens. But as the interview progresses, you will start building a rapport. You will start getting into a kind of a situation where you yourself will get vibes that this is now heading into more of an informal discussion. There, a little bit of loosening up is okay, but don't start walking in and start cracking jokes from point one when you appear in an interview. Keep a right balance between being formal and not being too tensed also.
But humor is good. It's good to have humor in your conversation as it gets into it further. Okay, so I think we just about 13 minutes left.
12
more to cover.
You said 13, he said 12. Anyway.
Huh? 12, okay.
You
so
can,
that's what Amith ended on, right?
You can take 5-10 minutes extra also, sir. I hope, I'm sure nobody will mind, sir.
We'll be open for questions, no issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so go on, Rohan.
So I think I said Amith just mentioned this point. In the first one, it says, remember, it can be that one strong quality that can leave a strong impression on the interviewer. So keep those punchlines ready for situations. In fact, key is preparation. The more you prepare yourself, and close-ended answers always help. The moment you give an open-ended answer, it leads to another question.
What was the strong impression building statement that he made in interview? If anybody can quickly highlight that to me. There was one very strong ability of his that he displayed in those statements. Does anyone remember?
He said, he said that. He said, if I don't know the answer, I will say
good.
I don't know.
Very good.
But I will find the answer.
Very good. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I think in that one sentence, he is actually showcased what he stands for. And I think that means a lot. Right, Lawrence? Makes sense?
And a good closing statement, I think, when you close the interview. I think, for example, most folks close the interview with saying, thank you so much. It was very nice meeting you and talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity. That's a very plain and mundane statement. Maybe you should add things like, it was extremely interesting speaking with you. I'm thrilled about the opportunity. I've heard from you some things which are really, really keen, that I'm really keen to work on. And I look forward to hearing from you on next steps as we get into finalizing this role. So give a punchy statement when you leave the interview. Okay, so we spoke about this a little in the beginning. We talked about personal branding. Now, how does this help, and what can people do to leverage personal branding? Now, first of all, open question. What do you think is personal branding? Any thoughts? Anything at all? Anything?
Is it your presence on the social media, especially LinkedIn, wherein people start, noticing you, more people are noticing you, more people are visiting your profile, and they're engaging in the stories that you are publishing? and that establishes a kind of your presence and your, so to say, your brand.
Absolutely. I think you got it. There's one underlying factor there which causes that to happen, and that is your personal brand. So what you said, Neil, is spot on. Why do people get onto your social media pages, like, subscribe, read on, comment, react? That happens because you have perhaps created a personal brand for yourself. How many of you have heard about Rajiv Makni? Have you heard about Rajiv Makni?
Rajiv sir, you said, say again, sir?
The one who's there on NDTV Tech for the
Rajiv Makni.
Yeah. We all have heard.
Tech guy, the mobiles, he gives that.
Exactly. So now he's been there in the industry for quite some time. It's nothing new. But over the past few years, he's suddenly been recognized as the person to go to for any questions on electronics. So much so that he was on Kaun Banega Crorepati as well, as one of the experts that Amitabh Bachchan had appointed. So he's created a brand for himself in that space of mobile and electronics. So when we talk about personal branding in context of corporate, I think to Neil's point, yes, your presence on social media, but tagged along with what you stand for. In words of Simon Sinek, if you've been listening to Simon Sinek, he says, people buy what you sell not because of what it is, but because of why you sell it. So you sell it for a reason, you sell it for a value. So when we start creating our personal brands, we are creating an image of ourselves on social media, in the corporate world, in our personal circles, that we stand for the following values or for the following areas of expertise. So while it's a much deeper topic to get into as to how you start building a personal brand, at the very first step, what we need to do is to come out with a value statement for us, or as we call it, a personal branding statement for us. And that is a statement that Amith and I spoke about in the beginning and said, that is what goes into the top of your profile. That is what goes into as your introductory note. Because that's what will draw people to you. So it's basically saying, for example, X stands for all that is required to be done to create a solid LinkedIn brand. So you always keep going to X. Or in the corporate world, or for example, if I take Rohan's example, right? You give an example of running a shopping mall or a shopping store or a shopping mall. So are there people who would be experts in that area? Would you like to create a brand for yourself in that particular domain? That starts selling. It could be anything. It could be risk and controls. It could be any of the corporate domains or any domain in any industry that we talk about, right? And why we should have a personal brand? I mean, this definition should this statement should kind of make it very, very clear. We need to understand that we are our own CEOs, right? And to be in the business today, our most important job is to be the head marketer of the brand called you. So Tom Peters, if I think most of you know, is a management guru and a writer. So do we want to create a personal brand? Yes. Can we do it overnight? No. Is it very time taking? Not really. There are gradual steps we take you through. Does it take a good amount of time to reach that stage where you're recognized as a brand? Yes, perhaps 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Depends on how you approach that process. And the benefits you would see is when, again, going back to Neil's example, you applied for a job, you've been on LinkedIn, and if on LinkedIn, you've been particularly writing and posting things on a particular domain, you get noticed. And that's where you get called out and you say, okay, well, when recruiters look at a profile and they see your LinkedIn profile, they go and check it. Most of them. And if they find a very active LinkedIn profile, it acts as a positive in your shortlisting process. If you're not very active, it doesn't mean you're discarded, but it's definitely positive. Amith, you'd like to walk through the example here?
Yeah. And this is a live example. This is a live example of a candidate who I trained, who's now in a big multinational company. Obviously, will not take any names, but This is the profile brand statement that came to me when this veteran candidate came to me, I think 6-8 months back. And I'm sure that all of you who come from this world who understand what is SLP now, because these are some of the roles that you all are targeting as you come out of the corporate of your IIMs. This is one area that you all know that you can do well on. So this candidate was trying to apply for a role of a SLP manager, right? And he was an experienced person like you. Now, read the left-hand side, kind of note that he had on his brand statement. Very good adjectives, very good, interesting adjectives to sum it up. Eloquent, focused, dedicational, professional, rich knowledge, experience targeting senior level opportunities in project, program, information security, operations management, with an established and growth focused organization. सब कुछ है उसके अंदर. And I'm sure that if you go back and look at some of your own profiles now and look at the professional summary or the brand statements, काफी कुछ आपको similar मिलेगा उसमें कि हमको ये भी आता है, वो भी आता है, हम ये भी करते हैं, वो भी करते हैं. We know operations also, मेरे को project management. Some people say that I'm good in machine learning algorithms also, etc., etc., etc. But think about the person who is looking at your profile for the role, and this is a SLP role. Now read the one on the right hand side. Rohan, or anybody, Rohan, would you be kind enough to just read it loud for all of us? The one on the right hand side.
Yeah, highly accomplished military leader with keen interest in security and loss prevention, having led multiple projects in the said domain. I bring experience in the field of protecting assets and personnel, managing complex security operations and quality audits for the business. Proven ability to strategize and execute comprehensive security plan, ensuring the safety and integrity of critical assets. A strong people manager with ability to manage scale leading teams comprising of XXX manager and associate over course of last 14 years.
Does that kind of make sense? अगर ये पढ़ने के बाद किसी के मन में कोई डाउट है कि ये एक established SLP handle करने के लिए perfect बंदा है, who knows, who has standing on SLP, who understands how to manage assets, also has experience of people management, because obviously senior roles come with people management. कोई भी senior role IC आजकल नहीं मिलता है. And even if it is an IC, you still have to interact with people. So this is where the brand makes a huge difference, right? Now, this is a brand statement I'm going to get of an individual on the right-hand side and on the left-hand side. My first impression would be to pick up the right one, because this gives me a clear indication that this person is cut out for this role. So I'll pause here. Any thoughts? And then we can move forward.
Amith sir, what I gauge from what you have been saying is that when the recruiter see your profile summary or that the initial 5 lines, basically it should say it all about the role that you applied for.
Thank you, Rohan. Thank you,
Rohan. So what we need to do is that every time you apply for a role, just customize those 5 lines based on the JD.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Rohan. I think आपने हमारे पूरे program का summary 1 second में निकाल दिया. But thank you so much for that. But the fact of the matter is कि ये छोटी-छोटी चीज है. These are very small things. But we put our resumes cast in stone, और एक ही resume हमारा होता है, and then we just shoot it across to the whole world like a carpet bomb, and keep waiting कि someone will respond to us and say that okay, we want you. That's not going to happen. These are the key words. These are the key statements in the resume that make the biggest impact. And that is why I always say that resume should be dynamic. We will look at a very interesting video, which will give you a complete understanding of what a brand looks like. Vivek sir, if you can go to that.
Yeah.
This is my favorite video.
.com crash. I've never seen you panic. You stay the course and you sort of stick to your script. How do you do that? And how do you advise us to sort of internalize that as well as a strategy?
Well, I think that if you're straightforward and clear about the way that you're going to operate, then you can operate in whatever way you choose. And we don't even take a position on whether our way is the right way. We just claim it's our way. But Warren Buffett has a great saying along these lines. He says, you can hold a ballet and that can be successful. And you can hold a rock concert and that can be successful. Just don't hold a ballet and advertise it as a rock concert. You need to be clear with all of your stakeholders with, are you holding a ballet or are you holding a rock concert? And then people get to self-select in. I think, and I don't think there's a particular recipe, but there are elements of what we do that I think help. So one of them is that inside our culture, we understand that even though we have some big businesses, new businesses start out small. And so, it would be very easy for, say, the person who runs our U.S. books category to say, why are we doing these experiments with things? I mean, that generated, a tiny bit of revenue last year. Why don't we instead focus those resources and that, that all that brain power on the books category which is a big business for us. And instead, that would be a natural thing to have happen. But instead, inside Amazon, when a new business, reaches some small milestone of sales, email messages go around and everybody's, giving virtual high fives for reaching that milestone. And I think it's because we know from our past experiences that big things start small. The biggest oak starts from an acorn, and you've got to recognize, if you want to do anything new, you've got to be willing to let that acorn grow into a little sapling and then finally into a small tree, and maybe one day it'll be a big business on its own.
And in fact, that's one of the mottos for one of your initiatives, and forgive my pronunciation.
Yeah, so reflections, very interesting video. I'm sure you understand now after what Vivek told you about the brand. I think now the video would have made more sense. But any reflections, anybody raise of hands quickly, any afterthoughts? Some key words there, key statements. Anybody? Open to all, please. Would love to hear your thoughts. Nikhil, Asha, anyone? Dipti?
Sir, Sanjay here, sir.
Sanjay sir, please go ahead.
Sir, one day is a sapling which can be lead to a big grown-up tree, and that tree can again give a shadow to so many people.
Small, so that's what Vivek was saying. When you build a brand, it will start very small. It
Yes,
will
sir.
grow over a period of time. So that was
Sir.
one. Did you hear that ballet and rock concert? Anyone thinks about that? I think that resonates with that initial statement of professional that I was giving. If you want to say that you want to be cut out for SLP, say that you want to go for the SLP. Don't learning algorithms, my project management operations also, don't do that. If you want to say that you want to go for this, say that you want to go for that. Small things, but I think the message is very clear that, brands will make a strong impact when you're going for the interview. And when you're building your resume, the brand will really, really reflect what you are. Vivek, sir, please.
So I think you got the message. So it's key that when you project yourself for a role, either through your profile or subsequently when the recruiter makes a first call, or when you go on to meet the hiring manager, you have to be very clear about your positioning. And that positioning could be relative to the JD, or it could be an absolute positioning that you're doing because that's what you really want to be. And stick to that. So there are hardly any people who would qualify as, I know this and this and this and this and this. And in that case, it becomes a very difficult decision for the recruiter also to pinpoint and say, what should I pick this person up for?
Absolutely.
I have a small input here. See, basically, we really don't know. When you think about an MNC, we've never been exposed to an MNC. Now, what operations entails there, security and loss prevention, whatever. So you are not really clear about your role practically. So you want to do something, but you really don't know which will be the best for you in that particular organization. So basically, we require a mentor who can tell that in that particular,
We'll be happy to guide you, Asha. That's exactly what we do. That is what we do, right? So, Vivek sir, if you can take them to slide 19 and 20, that will probably just kind of help them a little bit. Yeah. So, Asha, you are absolutely right, and that is why making the veterans aware that this is where many a times you are not aware that you can do this job very well. Well, actually, you can. And that sometimes puts you away from not applying for that role because you think that aap kar nahi paoge. So that is exactly what we do. And that is what I would say a good mentor, if in case you want to work with somebody else, somebody who's already part of the industry or somebody who's a senior, those are the right people that I would say you should engage in, professionals who can guide you in the right direction. Because one thing I can tell you, sir, if you can just go to that slide and put that list of companies which is hiring, maybe I think that will give you an idea.
Crash. I'd never.
I have just made a list. It's dynamic, of course. Thoda sa, so next one. Yeah. These are the companies that are right now hiring specifically veterans and who we work with very closely. I mean, Salesforce is one of them, Amazon, of course, Dell, my previous company, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. These are all the companies which are actively sourcing veterans. And there are specific programs that run. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you can only apply for veterans program. You can apply for a regular position also. But many times you don't know that, which are the roles to, like Asha rightly asked. So, so this is exactly what we do. I think the next, sir, iske ek slide pehle, if you can put them so that they know what exactly we do, because I don't know if all of them are aware.
Yeah, sure. I'll just do that. And just to add on to that, Amith, for Asha, I think Asha, not for Asha, for everyone over here, I think it's like, you know how to drive a car, but you want to drive a different car. The basics don't change. So even if you're applying for a role, which is in an MNC, which could be a banking sector, which could be software development, it could be a company like Amazon, you would have a risk and controls role or a security role or a project manager's role. The basics of project management don't change. So that should not become a deterrent. Yes, what you would need is to be guided and coached on how you need to project your skills for that specific role.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I'll just give an example, Ashan, for everyone. I will not name anyone, but there was this gentleman who's 20 years experience. He's a colonel in the army. And we had a requirement for a seller support operations manager. Seller support. Amazon mein, there is a separate domain called seller support operations manager. And we had got a requirement. So this requirement came to us saying that we need somebody. I asked this gentleman, I said, I think you'll fit in well. He said, nahi, sir, mujhe to seller support ke baare mein kuch pata nahi. So I told him, I said, don't worry about it. It is not about seller support. Seller support is the domain in which you are going to go. Let's think about what is the work required. Now, what was the work required? You had to run a team of 120 people, associates, some 6 to 7 managers. You had to work on a particular metric, which was designed for seller support in terms of what are the satisfaction levels, what is the average handle time, what is the time taken to respond to the query. So when I asked him, can you do that? He said, yeah, ye sab to main kar sakta hu. Right? So then I told him, I said, so don't, it is just a domain. If you have the abilities to run operations, you can run operations. That's all about it. So I hope that answers the question to some extent. Okay, yeah. The previous slide. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we've highlighted 2 of our offerings here. There are many more that we take care of, starting from design thinking down to emotional intelligence, and from basics of communication on to impactful communication, assertive comms. I think the whole, almost a huge gamut of how to create high-performing teams, a lot of it. But specifically on interview coaching, as you see, Amith, you'd like to talk about this? And then we'll move to the next one.
So the content, when we created, the whole idea was exactly about what we are talking today. The idea was that we wanted to make sure that the candidates not only are prepared end to end to express themselves, to articulate themselves, but also showcase those key skills that the companies are looking for. So if you go to Amazon or Google or Microsoft, they all interview you on their leadership principles. The interviews are structured in such a smart way that the nature of questions will test 2 things. One is your domain expertise. So the question itself will push you to bring out examples where you have showcased the domain expertise. But they will also check the leadership thought process, whether you can manage scale, whether you can create a culture, whether you can influence others, whether you can build a team in that direction. And that is exactly that we do. And of course, because we have been doing this for 2.5 years, we now work very closely with a lot of companies where, we get requirements from time to time. We have over 250 plus candidates now in the last 2 years who have also gone and are working in companies who keep coming to us and asking for profiles, because they know now that people who go from trained from us are interview prepared and they are interview ready. So we pass on the referrals to our candidates as a part of the offering as well. And like I said, we'll be very happy to take any more questions. Rohan, you can take those 5-10 minutes extra and we can answer some of the questions you have. And then if any one of you wants to get in touch with us, we'll be very happy to talk one-on-one as well.
And just to add on to that, what Amith mentioned, I think it's not just getting you cookie cut for the interview, and it's not a surface wash. In the process, people who've got trained by us or coached by us in this have acknowledged that they have actually learned about some of the key or top leadership skills and abilities or finer points which they perhaps would have
Absolutely.
missed. So
Absolutely.
that's what pulls the candidates. It's not just you've been taught how to answer a question. We also have been doing sessions on personal branding. We've done quite a few of them for Institute IIM'B, and these are run as for their cohorts which are similar to yours, to get people started on personal branding. And it's then up to individuals who wants to take it forward and work on building a personal brand. But it does pays off. Sometimes it is inadvertently that a brand gets created. Good enough, you can capitalize on it. If it is not, and you know what you stand for, you can start creating a personal brand, and we can guide you on how you can start doing that.
Officially, I may not be able to share the deck, but I know some of you probably would have taken pictures. So please ask your friends if you can share it with each other. Formally, as per company policy, I may not be able to share the deck completely. So I think somebody just asked that question. But Rohan, open to questions. Anybody, feel free if you something we can answer.
Sir, one thing quickly, sir, if you can just have that slide of your contact details, and so that people can.
We'll send it to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And professional charges that you charge, sir. If that also, if you're okay to put it out.
Yeah, we'll talk to you when we get connected. I think may probably not be the best forum, but we'll talk to you one-on-one, definitely.
Okay, sir.
I'll also message my number to Rohan. Rohan, if you can be kind enough to circulate that, we'll really appreciate.
Yes, sir, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Questions, guys? Anything that you would like to know? I know we tried to answer some questions during the program, but if there is any pressing question somebody has on the mind, feel free.
Amith and Vivek, I'm Peter. I
Peter.
just for a small question. Basically, when you said about putting up your resumes, it's generally in response to a JD that is put out, or a requirement that is coming up. Now, if I've got to send something out, or a resume out to where there is no such sort of requirement that has come up, but I want to send it out to the companies. So is that appropriate, or how do I go about that?
Yeah, you can. But then even if it is just an open resume, you should be able to highlight in that resume what you stand for. So like, for example, in the previous one, if you want to be very clear that your expertise are in operations and in program management, then let the resume focus largely on these two. Don't make a resume which says I can do operations, I can do risk management, I can do program management, I can go into machine learning. Don't do that. If it's a common message that you want to send out, still be specific about the areas that you are expert on. Right? That is the only advice we are giving. We are not really saying that. What we are only saying is that when you get a JD, see, if you get a JD, then put the JD into it. Yes, I agree that there will be times when you have to, send out resumes to people where there is no role as such available, or nobody has told you, but you just want that person to have your resume. Then let that. So for example, tomorrow if that person gets an opportunity, let him call you only if there's an operations or program manager role. If tomorrow there's a risk management or a machine learning role, he should not be calling you. Right? Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, thanks. That does.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, I have a question now. You just showed an example of an SLP profile summary.
Security loss prevention, yes.
Yeah. So now, say in Amazon, there are different roles, and you apply for SLP, you tweak your resume, and then you apply for some other role. Again, you tweak your. So is it not that they will catch on to it?
No.
So see, it's okay to do it.
It's absolutely okay if that is your strength and that is what you would like to do. There is no problem in that. It's in fact they would appreciate that. I mean, imagine a SLP recruiter or SLP hiring manager getting a resume for a hardcore operations leader or a risk management guy. Why would he be interested? He would definitely want to, there is something pertaining to SLP in that resume. He'll be super excited. I showed you, by the way, that last one, the real one. It is not a made up story one. It's a as is professional brand statement versus what I created for him. It was not a made up one. It was a real one.
Okay. Nimisha, you have a question.
Hi. This is Nimisha. So I wanted to ask that what I can understand till now, whatever we have talked about the interview is about the first round. So, what are the subsequent rounds about? Like, what do they try to look for in the second and third and fourth rounds, and what should we prepare for the same?
So Nimisha, see this. There is no this first round, second round. This thing has moved away to a large extent. Okay, first of all, right? Interviewers will assess you on multiple different skills. So typically, if you look at, for example, an Amazon interview process as such, Amazon interview का process कैसे होता है कि once they decide to interview you, there are 4 or 5 people who are nominated to interview you, and they are given specific skills that they should assess you on. So, for example, hypothetically, let's say I am one of your interviewers, and I have been told by the recruiter that you please assess Nimisha on insisting on high standards and customer obsession. So I will assess you on these 2 topics. Let's say Vivek is the second interviewer. He's being assigned getting into details or dive deep and thinking big. He will assess you on that. And at the end of our discussions, we will all get together in a debrief to actually assess how Nimisha did. So we get a 360-degree view of it. So typically, the erstwhile scenario कि एक round हुआ फिर आगे गए फिर किया वैसा अब नहीं होता. Things have changed.
So primarily, there is no difference in preparing for the n number of rounds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to prepare for all the skills that you are likely to be tested on.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Rohan, I think looks like we are good.
Praveen has a question. Praveen,
okay,
you have a
Praveen has a question.
Good afternoon. Very quickly, sir. Firstly, thank you for the presentation. Very informative.
Thank you.
And I like the energy levels, very high. So initially, I thought you were an ex-Fauji. So yeah. So the second, the question that I want to ask is, where are you based, and will your training be in person or online? Thank you.
Very, very interesting question. So when we started off this journey, and I basically gave this work to a market research company, and the response that came back was that because we are training individuals for senior levels, we can't do this classroom session. So I know it's a lot of hard work that we have to put in, but we do these sessions one-on-one because every individual comes with his or her set of niche strengths and opportunities. And we got to work on those opportunities. We need to leverage those strengths. So all our sessions are one-on-one. This is an investment of roughly 10 hours that we need from every candidate over a period of, let's say, 2-3 weeks, depending on their schedule. But these are online. So we are in Hyderabad, but it doesn't matter. I work from every part of the country. And it gives leverage to our candidates to be based out of any part of the country, as well as any part of the world as well. We have candidates who we train from UK and US as well, depending on the requirements. So it's one-on-one for your answer. I hope that clarifies it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So you do a role like a financial advisor, sir, one-to-one, tailoring to that person.
Sir, every individual on this group today comes with his own strengths. जो आपकी strengths है, किसी और की opportunities है, जो किसी और की opportunities है, वो आपकी strengths है. So I have to cater and leverage to that.
Okay, any other question? Anybody?
Photo.
And for that question on being a Fauji, I come from a very close line to your Fauji world. I spent 14 years at the hospitality industry, which is the Taj. And when I did Taj, it was almost like a Fauj only. So maybe that is why you see that energy level.
Yeah, very good, sir. Keep it up.
Thank you.
I think, sir, we are done with all the questions. What we can do is we can quickly click one photograph with you. And
Rohan, like the session, and we're getting some messages, but I must, before we click the photograph, I want to thank all of you. You guys have been amazing participants, and thank you for asking so many questions and being a part of the session. So thanks from our end as well, Rohan.
Yeah, that was very interactive. A lot of questions and a lot of engagement. That was really nice.
So, Amith sir, with your permission, can we put it on LinkedIn also, this photograph?
बिल्कुल सर. विवेक सर से पूछ लीजिए एक बार. विवेक सर has आप वीडियो बंद कर दीजिए सर.
अच्छा ठीक है.
Vivek sir was one of the biggest giants multinational companies, which I still can't take a name of, but those who have gone to his LinkedIn would have found out. One of the largest investment banking companies in the world. So maybe that's
saw,
I think we would
Vivek
love
sir
to
has
work
worked with
there.
JP Morgan. Yeah, I just saw it.
Okay.
What about it?
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, smile, please. And Praveen sir, can you please switch on your camera? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'll just click a photograph. Smile,
Sure.
please. Thank you, sir. We are done.